So, you may have seen that the jobs numbers came out recently. I think the first quarter job numbers just came out. And there was a really interesting phenomenon that occurred with these numbers. There were both too few and too many workers. So, what am I talking about? What does that mean? So, essentially, the job market added a large number of jobs. I think it was like 227,000. I don't know off the top of my head though, but that sounds right. Anyway, these numbers are online. You can just check me. But anyway, so they've added a number of jobs, a decent chunk of jobs, but people don't want to work in them. However, so three parts of this, there are lots of workers still collecting unemployment and who are not applying to these jobs. There are lots of unemployed workers, I guess is what I should say, unemployed potential workers, so people. And there are lots of jobs that, in theory, would hire them. But the problem is, if you look a little deeper, you'll see that the jobs that are being created are very low-wage jobs. They're typically restaurant jobs, cleaning jobs, and things like that. So we've created an interesting paradigm here, which is, yes, jobs are being created, but the jobs that are being created are so terrible that if people literally don't need to do them to survive, then they're not going to do them. This is, by the way, super fascinating, especially for me who advocates for universal basic income. This is essentially what we would see if universal basic income was implemented. We would see jobs being created that people didn't want to work. So then what happens? In theory, the job creators, as it were, would have to modify the pay for these jobs in order to get people to do them. Because if not, then no one is going to actually perform these jobs. And we'll have shortages of labor. But the real thing that we have shortages of is wages, right? If people can make money, or if people can survive without having to work these terrible, terrible jobs, they're going to. People don't want to work terrible jobs. They don't want to be miserable at work. Most people are just working because they have to in order to survive. If we take away the coercion of you have to work to live, we can create job spaces that are hospitable to workers, that are enjoyable to work in, that allow people to feel fulfilled, and that are safe, right? If you think about the jobs being created, which are janitorial jobs, restaurant jobs, and things like that, oftentimes, you're dealing with other people, and other people can be awful. Like if you've worked in customer service, and I have too, you know that some people just suck. They say terrible things to you. They report you to your boss for things you didn't do. They scream at you, and they're just overall bad to you, right? So why would you want to work that job? So the reason that people work those jobs, of course, is to survive. But if you don't have to work to survive, well, then the workplace has to change to get you to work there, right? They either have to pay you more, or they have to make the environment more welcoming, or they have to make the environment safer for you. All of these things incentivize people to work, because sometimes people do want to work. But given the option of work at a place that I hate, that's dangerous for me, that I'm miserable at all the time, and stay at home and collect unemployment, or stay at home and collect my UBI, or whatever it's going to be, people are going to stay at home. So what we're seeing is, and I heard this somewhere, I can't think of where it was, but it was such a great point. What we're witnessing is a fundamental reshift of the labor market. And the thing that's really fascinating to me is that the reaction from this by politicians and corporations is not to change the way that the labor landscape looks in order to make it more hospitable to individuals who could then become workers, but instead to try and coerce them back into making it a life or death decision. So you see many states now are trying to revoke their additional unemployment benefits or their COVID unemployment benefits. But the pandemic's not over. Admittedly, we're in theory getting there if we don't, if we vaccinate the world and don't mess it up. But you see that the nefarious parts of capitalism are coming out to play. So they see that they can't exploit you because you have a way to get out of the exploitation. So their solution, as opposed to making the exploitation better for the exploited person, is simply to make it so that you have no options anymore, which is fascinating and so sinister. And by the way, that's what you should view all of these revocations of unemployment, of new unemployment benefits or additional unemployment benefits as. That's all it is. The only reason they're doing this now is because people are in the wonderful position where they can say, you know what, I really don't want to work this shitty job. I'm going to stay at home instead. And because corporations and politicians are so mad about that, because they are so threatened by the mere possibility that individuals could choose not to be workers, that could choose not to work for starvation wages in terrible conditions that they hate, instead of saying, why don't we just make working less shitty? The response is, let's make it so that they don't work, they die. Let's make it so that if they don't go to this job that they absolutely hate, that they never get to spend time with their friends or family, they never get to have hobbies, they never get to do all these other things that they want to do in their life, they have to work multiple jobs just to live. Instead of saying we should make that better, we should say, no, we should go back to crushing people under the boots of capitalism. We should make it so that if you don't work 3 jobs, 120 hours a week or whatever it is, you're going to die. How fucked up is that? Like I said in the last segment, this paradigm shift that we're seeing is a beautiful and brilliant opportunity for the left. We should try and sell people on this idea. Hey, you know how you're not working right now because you can live at home and you can enjoy your life a little bit more and you don't have to work in order to live and you don't have to feel strangled by all the pains of bills and stresses and things? What if life could be that all the time? Hey, by the way, we can do that. We can give you health care as a right, Medicare for all, or just nationalization of all things health. We can do that. Here's a UBI check, $2,000, $3,000 a month. No questions asked. Spend it on whatever you want. Enjoy your life with it. Oh, by the way, don't make housing a commodity anymore. Reasonable rents, if any rents at all. Communities organizing to, community ownership of homes and housing and workplaces. What if this non-stress that you're feeling, what if this ability to choose when you work and how you work could be the case forever? We offer the platform that allows you to do that. Socialists do. Lefties do in general, but I'm talking from my perspective as a socialist. But this is such a great opportunity to teach people that the way that it was before isn't how it has to be. And they're living a tiny sliver of that now, but it can be so much better. Let's go, lefties. This is the message we have to be sending to people. Your life can actually be better. We can transform it. We can make it better. You don't have to worry about some of these things. This scarcity, this coercion, it's all manufactured. None of it's real. And if we can get that message across to enough people, we can start to fundamentally shift the way that regular people think about these things. We can change the dialogue. Now, I don't know if it's going to filter up to people in power, and my guess is it probably won't. But the more that we can force the conversation to be about how can we make our lives easier, how can we make our lives better, how can we fundamentally transform the way that we do things in order to, preserve the sanctity of life and happiness and enjoyment, using things like this and the colonial pipeline attack and stuff like that. The closer we get to realizing the types of policy ends that will create this good life for people. And so any moment that we have like this, where these jobs are being created, but people are like, I'll pass, this is the moment that we use to change, to start to try and change the way that we do things. So every time a governor tries to revoke extra unemployment benefits, we need to fight them. Every time a legislature tries to change the way emergency declarations are done to make it so that they end earlier, so that people don't get the benefits of emergency declarations for longer, we need to fight that. Because we're seeing what happens when the bubble that is our forced labor pops a little bit. And it's changed lots of people's lives. Now, the circumstances that it occurred in aren't great, but it's possible to have this level of leisure and enjoyment and ownership of your own labor all the time. It is possible. We just have to educate and organize around it. And so I hope that organizations will take this moment to move this forward, to move the needle on this, or at least to get the conversation going. Change the dialogue. Because until we're talking about it at a national level, it's very unlikely that anything changes. So it's hard to say if we'll actually make any movement on this, but I hope we do, because it would be really great for us to start thinking about work as something that you choose to do and not something that you're forced to do.